I don't want to change job right now, so I don't think coaching is for me. That is a sentence I hear more often than you might imagine. I also hear comments like, well, it's not the right time to make any changes at the moment. I just hang on a while longer and see what happens. This happens usually after we have had a rather long and meaningful conversation about what someone longs for, what they want more time for, or what they feel that they're holding back and want to step forward more fully into. And I find it interesting because this response rarely comes from a place of certainty. It more often comes from a place of fear. Fear of waking something up inside that might ask for a change. Or a fear that clarity automatically means disruption. However, here's where I love to direct both your attention and mine today. Clarity doesn't always lead to a new job. Sometimes it gives you the confidence to stay exactly where you are, with intention, with alignment, and with renewed sense of direction. Yes, sometimes clarity shows you that you have outgrown your environment where you've been dimmed, or where you need to take a step into something new. But deciding to stay or deciding to leave, both are acts of leadership, both are acts of courage, and both comes from the same place, listening and acting on what is true for you, what is aligned with your vision, your values, and allowing that inner truth to steer your focus and perspective. Developing confidence in how you lead yourself and others is one of the most powerful ways to lead with both clarity, authenticity, and trust, especially because it helps you to show up with less stress and more calmness. Welcome to Confident Leadership in Color, a podcast for leaders who want to show up with confidence, authenticity, and genuine empathy. I'm Hannah Saxmy, leadership coach and speaker, here to boost you in your leadership. There I was, tucked away in a cloakroom in Stockholm, sitting on an old travel trunk that looked as if it had been traveling through centuries before ending up underneath me. My back was against the window. A grey and cold December day was just pressing into that from the outside. Inside of me, though, there was a storm, a mix of confusion, frustration, and anger. All was tangled together, pushing me into a full crash state. My mind was looping, tight and relentless. All those fears, all those what-ifs, all of them at once. Work at that time felt like a sprint without pauses. Tight deadlines, high expectations, a constant demand to deliver, faster, better, and more. So being at this leadership and coaching training felt like a rare breath. A moment I had been waiting for months. A much needed pause to reconnect with myself and with what I longed to develop. And then the call started. My phone lit up again and again and until I stepped out to answer it. On the other end was my manager, tense and escalating, and suddenly I heard the words that froze everything inside of me. If you don't cancel your training and get back to the office within an hour, I consider it refusal to work. And I personally make sure you lose your job. I went frozen. The call ended and then the tears came. I was in shock. I was in fear and disbelief. And that nagging voice repeated inside of my head, "What's your decision?" My mind was spinning. My decision window was tiny, barely 30 minutes, if I was going to make it back in time. I was terrified about choosing the wrong way. In that moment, what I wanted more than anything was clarity. I longed for steadiness, for something inside of me to cut through the storm. I wanted to feel anchored again, to reconnect with a version of me who knew how to lead, who trusted her judgment, who made decisions from a grounded place. Now I just was drifting, and I would like to have the version of me who could say with confidence, "I'm on the right course." I didn't have the words for it then, but looking back, my desire was simple. I wanted direction and alignment. not from the outside, but from within. However, the more I stayed in my head, looping those questions, what's the right decision, two different fears started to show up. One side, there was the fear of losing my job, fear of disappointing my team, fear of making a choice I couldn't undo. On the other side, there was the a bit different fear, the fear of down-prioritizing myself again, the fear of not investing in my own development, the fear that I would just rush back to work and leave this training for another time that might never come. The fear of becoming disappointed in myself for not choosing me. And those two fears pulled me in opposite directions, and I felt paralyzed. What if staying meant I was irresponsible? What if leaving meant I was abandoning myself again? And what if the consequences were worse than I imagined? In one sense, it felt like I was in a parallel universe. I was suddenly just picked up and led away by one of the assistants, almost as someone had just reached into the chaos and guided me out of it. The assistant, she took me to a quieter place in the building, a small, calm corner where the noise in my mind softened just enough for me to start breathing and settle a bit. When my tears finally slowed and my breath steadied, she looked at me and asked, "Would you like me to do the exercise the others are doing? I can guide you." I didn't know what the exercise was, but before my mind had a chance to spiral again, I heard myself say, "Yes, why not?" She nodded and said, "Well, through this exercise, you'll define your passion, what drives you, your vision. We take it step by step." I think inside of me I was confused, but I said, "Oh yes, this is what I need." The exercise itself was simple, clear, and unexpectedly grounding. And as she guided me through each step, something shifted. The fog inside me began to lift. My breathing deepened. My thoughts looped less around fear and more around what I was discovering. Then I found myself standing a little taller, tears still on my cheeks, but now from relief rather than fear. And a smile broke through as I heard myself say, "Through developing, challenging, creating change, that's what gives me energy and joy." It felt like a light switching on. For the first time that day, I could see my long-term direction, where I truly wanted to go. I saw what mattered. I could feel myself being the leader I wanted to be. And my values came back into focus, clear, strong, and steady. And with that, the decision that had felt impossible minutes earlier became unmistakably clear. I was meant to stay in that training, to stay aligned with who I am, even if there was a risk of losing my job. It wasn't certainty, it was something deeper. It was an inner knowing. That moment taught me something I've carried with me ever since. Clarity doesn't always mean change. Sometimes it gives you the confidence to stay. I didn't stay out of fear. I stayed because I knew I was in the place where I needed to grow, to continue delivering value and moving towards the direction I wanted to go. Clarity at that point anchored me, gave me a calm confidence that this was the right decision. It strengthened me, it aligned me. And yes, returning to the office 2 days later, I still had my job and a much deeper confidence in how I could lead myself and my team, which later showed in our results. But life brings us to crossroads more than once. And years later, when I faced a different decision in a different season, clarity showed up in a completely different way. This time, it wasn't anchoring. It was more like setting sails. It showed me with the same softness and clearness that I had outgrown the environment I was in, that I was being dimmed, that staying would not allow me to be the most authentic version of myself because the values around me no longer matched my own, and that stepping into a new setting was necessary to show myself that I was the captain of my ship, not just following along. Both experiences came from the same place, listening inward rather than waiting for certainty, and acting on that with confidence. And that is the heart of the episode. You decide your way of movement. You choose whether staying is an act of alignment or whether stepping forward is. Neither is better or neither is braver. Both require two things: clarity on what matters and the confidence to trust your decision. That decision to remain at the training, to stay rather than rush back to the office, is something I see as a foundational to the work I do today. It shaped the way I develop leaders through the confident framework. It really taught me deeply and personally why clarity is set to be the first letter. Because clarity holds your values, your vision, and your passion. It helps you to lead yourself from a place of inner truth before you lead anyone else. So here's my invitation to you this week. Take a moment, even just a few quiet minutes, and tune inward. If you look back on your own life, pick a time where you made a meaningful decision. Do you choose to stay where you were or step into something new? What made you decide? What gave you the sense that this is the right decision for me right now? What was the sentence you told yourself? That quiet inner statement? And could you feel something in your body when this decision landed? Maybe it was bubbling or calm or grounding. Maybe a sense of release. What was guiding you? There is so much wisdom in those moments, and they can be powerful checkpoints when you face new decisions. Have I considered things that truly matters before I act? And you don't need certainty to move forward. You don't need to have the full picture, and you don't need to rush. All you need is a bit of curiosity and the willingness to listen to what your inner knowing has been saying all along. Working on clarity builds beliefs in what's possible. It builds trust that you have the capability to get where you want to go. And as a coach, that's what I help you to do. To step outside your current situation for a moment, to view your life from a new perspective, and to get curious about the wisdom you already carry. When I was preparing for this episode, I came across one of the reviews from a client in one of my group coaching programs. She wrote about the relief that she felt when she had clarified her direction and values. How she realized that she was, in fact, in the right place. Now she wanted to do some important updates in that place. Many of my returning clients want to revisit the vision work again. Not because they got it wrong the first time, but because they have grown. Their context has a bit changed, and now they need updated clarity that reflects who they have become and what they've discovered since the last time. I do this myself regularly. For me, it's important to revisit it often, to remind myself of my vision, my passion, and my values, why this matters, and why it's important. Each time I do it, it lands in me a little deeper. It creates more clarity, it strengthens the direction. It's like taking those early sketches I once scribbled down, rough outlines, loose ideas, and then turning them into far more colorful and vivid, more alive, more me. And because of that, it becomes faster and easier to make decisions. Decisions that come from curiosity and confidence rather than fear and scarcity. This is why clarity is always the starting point in my programs and in my coaching, because it creates both an anchoring effect and a setting sail effect, sometimes at the very same time. To help you get started, check the description of this episode. You find a clarity workbook there, free to download. And if you're curious about the next step, the next group program begins in January. Send me a message and I share you the details. Or reach out if you want to start a conversation about gaining clarity in your own direction. In the next episode, I'll be joined by a guest, and we talk about how we can lead our teams, our organization, and ourselves less from a state of fear and more from a confident state. Until then, remember, be confident, be you. If you want more confidence, clarity, and color in your leadership, make sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss the next episode. A new one drops every week to lift you, guide you, and boost your leadership journey. And you know what? You can get confidence boost in your mailbox as well. Check the description for all the details you need. Talk to you again soon. Be confident, be you.